I think just about everybody likes some kind of art. I bet even if you're not a real fan, there's probably some paintings that you see once in a while and say, hey, I like that. And I don't know if you've ever been in a museum or two and been impressed, or have a friend who can draw. I have a few friends who can do some art, and I've always been impressed. I've been, as I get older, every once in a while I've been pretty curious about the weirder stuff, where people are looking at it and obviously see something that I don't. And there's been many times where I see some paintings and I think, you're kidding, right? This is not anything legitimate. I bet you've seen some of those works of art too. I've seen paintings where it's just like completely blank, where it's all painted white except for maybe a blue square in one corner, and then it goes for $1 million. And I don't understand why this is art, and it looks so random. In fact, some of the stuff looks like somebody took their drop cloth and put it up and framed it. And you've probably heard more than one case. I think they sold paintings at an auction. In fact, I think Mom was telling me about one where they sold for millions of dollars, and they said, oh, by the way, that was painted by an elephant, or a monkey or something like that, just to see if the eggheads would, buy it and go for it. And a lot of times they do. Kind of the Emperor's New Clothes situation, say, yes, I see it too, kind of thing. And there's been many times, I've looked at something called art, and there's just nothing there. There's no rhyme or reason. It just seems like a mess to me. It might mean something to somebody else, but it just seems nonsense. And I think in many cases that's true. I think there's a lot of that going on where people are just kind of supporting each other in their delusion and say, yes, I think it's art, and so do you, and we're all good. And that's, I guess, if it makes them happy. But I also believe that's not always true. There's definitely a lot of foolishness out there, definitely a bunch of nonsense, but sometimes the problem isn't the art, the problem is with me, and it's because I didn't have all the information. Some of the stuff that I've kind of dismissed, whether it's writing or art or whatever, a painting, some of the stuff I've dismissed. Once I learn about the artist, somebody will tell me something and say, well, what you need to know is this about the artist. And suddenly it carries a little more meaning for me. Or if somebody tells me what the artist was trying to do, and so the reason it looks weird is he was doing this, and you say, okay, I can kind of get it now, and it suddenly makes sense. Without that information, it just is nonsense to me. To give you an example, this is one of the few that I know a little bit about. A lot of people like Monet. It's M-O-N-E-T. He's the guy that his paintings kind of look blurry. I think there's a water lily, and they make posters of it, and there's a bridge and all that stuff. And it almost looks like a picture out of focus. And you might look at it and say, wow, he's not very good. It looks pretty blurry. A lot of people like his art. And if you looked at it, you might think, well, that doesn't look very real. It's kind of fuzzy looking. That's not how I would do it. You look at it, it's not how you do paintings. But some artists have some pretty interesting ideas. They don't want to do it how you would do it, because anybody can do what everybody else is doing. So they're trying for something bigger than just like if there was a tree out there, say, I'm going to paint that tree. They're trying for something more. It's not about trying to make your painting look as close as a photograph as possible. If it was, you could solve it very simply by taking a photograph and framing it, and then you'd be done. Some say that art is more about capturing an idea. So here's the thing with Monet. Actually, this is a Bible lesson. We're getting to it. Monet was an impressionist, from what I understand. I know I'm taking a really big risk here talking about art appreciation right after lunch, but hang in there. It's going to be short, and I'm making a point. An impressionist might look at trees. This kind of artist, he'll look at trees, and what he does is he looks at them and he sees that they're moving. He says, if I paint it as it is, I'm just going to capture a moment. I want to capture several moments. So I'm going to try to make it look like those leaves are fluttering and that the tree's swaying back and forth. When you look at Monet, that's what he's trying for, is movement in a very motionless painting, which is a pretty cool idea, trying to capture that. He's thinking, I wonder if you could imply that in a painting, and that's why his stuff kind of looks blurry to us. So if you didn't know that, you just look at it and say, well, he's not very good. That's because you don't know what he's trying for. You don't know him. He's trying to capture movement, and he's using materials that have to be still. Which, even if you're not a fan, if you see his stuff and say, it's not my cup of tea, that's great. But it's still a pretty interesting idea. So here's what I'm suggesting. There are some kinds of art that are just stupid. I'm on board with that. I'll stand in line with you. I'll put my vote in and say that's a waste of oil paint. But there's also art that only seems stupid. And once you know more about the artist, and once you begin to think like the artist, and once you know more about the concept, the attempt, many times you will stand looking at it and the light will come on and you'll think, I get it. I thought it was just nonsense, but now I understand. I think carrying this idea, it's easy to look at the universe. I think a lot of people do that, and at the world and at the general situation and say, what a mess. If there was a God, how could there be this catastrophe and this in my life? It doesn't make any sense. All these other people that are doing what we're doing, it's an emperor's new clothes situation, say, I see it too. But they're just fooling themselves. If there's a God, why is everything so messed up? If there's an artist, why does it just look like a mistake to me? So I'm going to suggest a couple of things. There is an artist. Even if you don't understand a painting, you can't deny that there's a painter. Romans 1:20. I'm going to show you a few verses to maybe support this analogy. Romans 1:20 teaches us there is an artist. And anybody who looks at the painting, so to speak, and concludes that there isn't an artist isn't looking hard enough. You may think that the painting's not very good, but you have to admit at least this. There is an artist. Romans 1:20, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. The other thing, just because you don't get it, just because you look at your life or the universe or the world and it doesn't make any sense to you, that doesn't mean there isn't anything to get. The flaw might be in you as the observer. 1 Corinthians 1:18 makes it pretty straightforward that this is the case in most cases. 1 Corinthians 1:18, for the word of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. Without the right mindset, you're not going to see what's really going on. If there's a problem between you and the art, it might not be a problem with the piece of art itself. The problem might be you and a lack of understanding. I don't think it'll be totally clear until you begin to think like the artist. You have to look at the universe and the world and say, how does the Creator see this? 1 Corinthians 2:14. In fact, until we are baptized and receive the Holy Spirit, we're limited as far as our perception, because it says in 1 Corinthians 2:14, but a natural man does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they're spiritually appraised. The more you learn to think like God by being into the Word, the more it will make sense to you and say, I get it. I see what he's doing. Becoming a Christian connects you with the Spirit, and in a sense, it kind of makes you an artist. You think like the artist, and you understand things better. The more you learn about the artist in this case and about his concept, it all begins to come clear. Romans 12:2 is the last verse we'll look at. Romans 12 and verse 2. See, the more you understand about Monet, you might understand his painting. The more you understand about God, the more you'll understand about existence. Romans 12:2, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. Your mind is getting more tuned in with the artwork. I know you know, and maybe we've even been there ourselves. A lot of people look at the world and all they see is a mess, and maybe they don't trust that there's an artist. Just because you don't see a purpose, just because you don't sense a creator, that doesn't mean he doesn't exist. The problem is a lack of understanding. That understanding is limited until you become a Christian and begin to think like an artist. But even then, it's very important to keep learning, to make the effort to understand more. We won't understand everything here. I really believe that after this life is over, we will fully understand and realize this was a masterpiece. The universe, the world, my life was a masterpiece because there was an artist, and there is. All of us might help us to consider God as the ultimate artist. Some of them work in pencils or oils. God works with the universe and souls, and he's making a masterpiece. And just because you don't get it doesn't mean it is anything less than a masterpiece. But each of us has the choice whether or not to be part of it. And of course, being baptized is how you place yourself into the hands of the artist. that is always available. It's available here as we're singing this song together. If anybody's ready to make that decision, he's not only capable of working with the universe, he's also very capable of working with you. There's a better version of you. That's what I keep thinking for myself. There's a better version of you, always a little bit ahead, that he has in mind. And if you trust him, I know you'll be very happy how you turn out. Pray you'll think about this while we stand together and sing.